And we are live. My name is Terry Thompson. I am the host of Unbreakable Stories here, along with my co host, Bonnie. And tonight we are going to talk about courage. That's right, it's all about courage. And man, we'd had a truly phenomenal conversation the other day on Clubhouse about courage, and it's going to carry over here tonight. Bonnie, how you doing today?
I'm doing fairly well, thank you. It was a interesting week. I didn't actually feel well most of the week, so
Mhm.
I'm happy to be feeling much better today. How about you?
Man, same here. So, we both been out for about the last, month, like 5 weeks, I want to say. I was looking back at the last live stream that we did, and I want to say it was like 5 weeks ago. I was like, wow, man, like 5 weeks of just no talking, no live streaming, barely Clubhouse, trying to save voices and this, that, and the other. And even still today, 5 weeks later, I'm still like, I got this cough that just will not go away. So even having the courage to come on here tonight, and hopefully I don't cough all over the place, I'm good to go.
Well, at least we're not live and in person. That would probably cause a much bigger issue.
Yeah. So courage, it's one of those things that I think we both have different perspectives on courage, and I love it. And that's what it's all about, is bringing those different perspectives to the table, so that way other people can have examples of what other people are experiencing or what they've experienced, and maybe that will resonate with them. So I know for me, growing up in the military, courage was one of those things that I didn't always have. It was one of those things that I trained, and it was instilled within me because we did all this training, we did all these things, and it was repetitive. And over that repetition, it was like a muscle for me, and I built that courage muscle. And the courage to run in when you're being shot at, the courage to go do this, the courage to go do that. So from a military perspective, that's kind of where a lot of my courage comes from. Aside from that, growing up playing sports, that was a really big thing. So sports gave me the courage to do a lot of different things, because I was a pretty good athlete when I was growing up, and it gave me that courage to really kind of be in front of a lot of people, especially during those big games. When you're playing in front of 10, 15,000 people, it takes a little bit of courage to step out there in that arena, in that environment. And so I've really kind of had to develop that courage over the years. How about you?
um, I'd say my courage came more from probably survival instincts and uh, as a necessity of survival.
Mm,
Um, and then, in my probably early teens, all the way through probably my mid 30s, if not later. Um, but then kind of morphed as I um, moved into my healing journey, and I've talked about the different stages of that. Uh, and then morphed even more as I began to heal more. It then became the courage of things that were not like survival dependent or based on survival, and
mm,
more of to take opportunities that was going to would advance my either my career, where I was at in my life, and
mhm.
my healing. So yeah, mine was a little came about differently, but I think we both use courage in similar ways now that we've gotten to kind of this new landing point, if you will.
Mhm. How
Over
about the ability to speak up? Because that's one of those things that a lot of people, they just don't have the courage to speak up, even when they know something is right or they know something is wrong. And I'm even guilty of that as well too. It's something that I even still struggle with. It's like, man, it's that moment of like, I know I need to say this. I know this is like, it's in my gut. And I can feel it. It's like, this has to be said. And then I pause. What are your thoughts on that? It's like not speaking up when you know that, I believe that takes courage as well too. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. I have the tendency to avoid conflict in most
Mm.
situations,
Same here.
and not wanting to rock the boat per se. Uh, a good portion of our current audience, though, has seen us both on Zan's show and knows that when something really like hits me in my gut, like I almost don't have. It's not even almost really courage at that point. It kind of is like a gut instinct or a gut reaction to like, no, that's not correct, or you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, I think this is right, or whatever you want to call it. Uh, and so I think that's kind of where we bypass the fear and the courage and just jump. But yes, courage in speaking up when um, you see something that's just wrong, whether it's, morally wrong or, whatever the case is. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of us hold back. Even sometimes when it's something where our best, um, what's best for us is maybe not happening, but
Mm-hmm.
we want to avoid the conflict of saying something. And there's kind of that dynamic where you have to dig into your courage sometimes to speak up and get what it is that you need for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, from a military perspective, not speaking up is one of those things, as a leader, you have to speak up. And sometimes I often found myself in tough positions as well too, because I didn't really want that conflict either. And I didn't want to destroy the team or the morale or anything like that. But the moment that you walk past something, you establish a new standard without speaking up. It just establishes a new standard, and people will continue taking action if they're not told anything differently. And that comes from a lot of different avenues of approach. That could be positive, that could be negative, because if you don't say something, you're reinforcing negative behavior.
Yeah.
And then it's one of those things to where that establishes that new standard, and then the person or people or team or whatever the case will continue taking that action. What are your thoughts on that?
I see that a lot.
Mhm.
Well, I've never been in the military, but I've seen that most in like the dynamic between my kids, my older kids and my younger kids, and where like the older kids are trying to correct the younger kids. And it's like I kind of listen to see how the thing's going to play out. And sometimes I do need to step in and say, okay, I appreciate what it is you're trying to do. However, we need to modify that, and this is what needs to happen.
Mhm.
And sometimes that looks like stop, yelling no or whatever. Try not to yell into the microphone, but um, sometimes I'll overhear a conversation between my younger two, and like it's been nice the past couple of days. Really nice today. It was gorgeous out today. It was like in the 70s,
Mhm.
sunny.
Oh yeah. Oh, you
And I
probably saw my Instagram. I went and played soccer today. We went to the skating rink and went roller skating. It was fun. It was a good day.
That's not. Yeah, I just briefly saw your face flash by on my Instagram feed when I was logging in to grab the StreamYard link, and I saw the soccer field. It looked like, um, but there was several times where it's almost like they think that they're outside, that they're in a different world, and it's like we've got all the windows open
Mhm.
because I'm trying to, blow the winter stink out of the house, stale air, whatever you want to call it, and I can hear them talking, and there was a couple of times where I like busted through the screen door. I was like, that's completely inappropriate. That's unacceptable. And they just both look at me like, how did she hear me? And it's like, bro, the
Mhm.
windows are open. But um, but those are those times like I try
Mhm.
to listen and listen to them problem solve, but they've been throwing a lot of not horrible language, but like just what I consider inappropriate language around lately, really pushing boundaries and trying to see like what I'm going to put my foot down at. And those are
Mhm.
those situations where I've had to speak up and make it almost jarring so that hopefully like to stop that behavior, because if I don't say something, like you
Mhm.
said, it's reinforcing negative behavior. And uh, that anyways, that's so the answer is yes. uh, and I agree with you about the not speaking up reinforces that negative
Mhm.
behavior,
Yeah,
because they think that you're allowing it by default.
exactly. Especially in the workforce, because, and I don't want to dive down some rabbit holes on conversations about the workforce, but there's some negative situations within the workforce that a lot of people never had the courage to have a voice to speak up and say, no, that's not acceptable. No, that's not all right. I don't want you to do that or say that or touch that, or, and that's part of that rabbit hole I don't want to go down. And a lot of people are really getting their voice, so to speak, to have the courage to be able to say, hey, that's not right. Hey, we have rights. There's, equal pay. There's a lot of different things. And I truly appreciate that, because I've truly worked with a lot of dynamic people over the years, and that's one of the things about the military is that the military is an extremely diverse organization. And it's one of those things to where, as I saw a lot of the changes over the years within that, going out into the corporate world, I've seen some changes as well too. And I know that there's a lot of policies in place, there's a lot of procedures in place, but that can still really limit people's courage to speak up, because they don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose maybe their promotion or, anything positive above. What are your thoughts about that in the workforce?
So I'm going to be totally honest. I haven't been in a corporate setting in over look at me looking at the clock like I can, in over a decade. Yeah. So like 2011, I was working for a small accounting firm, like a family owned business. And prior to that, the last like full corporate setting, like large company I worked for, was an advertising agency that had, I guess, a local office here in Pittsburgh. And I left there in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So I was only 29, 30. I wasn't very old, and I hadn't been in corporate too long. Mm-hmm. What I do remember is that when I got sick, before getting sick, I didn't really know what was going on. I had a year and a half worth of something else going on that kind of might have been early warning sign to what ended up happening to me. But I went through a lot of unnecessary stress and aggravation, and I don't want to say got taken advantage of, because you can't be taken advantage of unless you let people. But at that point in time, I didn't really know any better, so I was kind of being taken advantage of. And what happened was I had to cut my hours to accommodate the kids no longer having daycare. And what ended up happening was I got a pay cut for the cut in hours, but they expected me to still perform all of my job duties as if I was working full time. So now I was working 6 hours a day, but expected to do 8 hours of work. And in my mind, like you said, I was just happy to have a job, and I wanted to keep my job. And so I didn't say anything. And very well, I should have come back with, well, if I can do the same job I was doing in 6 hours, then you should still be paying me my original salary. And if not, then I'm going to do 6 hours worth of work.
Yeah.
So that's my real experience as far as that is concerned. I know that the inequality is all over the place. I know that there's lots of things that still need to be done to bring equality as far as equal pay and whatnot into the corporate world. But that was my only. I'm not gonna say only. It's the only experience that I remember really well where I had something like that myself.
Yeah, and I remember years ago, once again, coming from a military background, there was a lot of times where I did not want to argue or fight back or give any type of resistance. And it takes courage to stand up to a senior leader within the military. It truly does, because at the end of the day, the mission's going to happen. The task is going to happen. I don't care how you do it. It's one of those things that's like, hey, boss, hey, here's this thing and here's that thing. I was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't care what your excuses are. You're going to go do that. And I remember one time I was trying to speak up one time and I had the courage to stand up to a senior officer. Okay. A couple of senior officers, and I was one of them. I was standing my ground, and I was truly standing my ground. I was truly at that point to where I was like, no, I am the senior leader here. I am not going to go anywhere. I understand that you're an officer. I understand that you outrank me. I get all that. But if I take myself out of the senior, position, where does that put me? Where does that put the team? I understand maybe I need to go out and I need to go do this and go do that and show the example and be the example. But it was one of those things to where I was doing somebody else's job, and that's what I felt. And it wasn't even our section. It wasn't even our job. We was doing it for another team, another section. And so I felt, why? Like, why am I the one why do I have to go out there and do this? I feel like I'm doing somebody else's work. So I stood up to this guy. At the end of the day, this beast of a freaking man. He played football in college and this and so he was like 3 times bigger than I am. Stood up and Hulk smashes this freaking desk and just starts yelling at the top of his lungs, "You will do this. You are going to go do that and this, that, and the other." And I was like, "I'm gonna go do that." And it was just one of those things. Even though I had the courage to speak up, I ultimately got defeated in that moment, and I kind of had to bow down. Now, another situation, same thing, significantly much senior ranking officer, telling me to do certain things. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that because that's being harsh to my soldiers. And it was one of those things to where if you got a problem with that, you go tell them. He didn't like that. But I had to have the courage to say that because I was like, I'm not going to treat my people a certain way because you have a different opinion or perspective on what they should be doing. That's your perspective, not mine. I'm their leader. Okay. And he didn't like that. So we had to go outside behind closed doors and kind of go toe to toe yelling at each other. And once again, it was one of those moments to where I had to have the courage to stand my ground because here's an officer easily could do paperwork to get me fired, to get me demoted in rank, to get me, all the above, but I had to stand my ground. And it's one of those moments to where you know that you're right. You have to have the courage to be able to speak up no matter what the consequences are. And for me, those were pretty big consequences I could have faced. One, I ended up moving out and like, yes, sir. The other one, I stood my ground and we went out and back and went toe to toe, yelling at each other. So it was kind of two different opposites of spectrums. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't had any. I'm trying to think. Well, I wasn't. I have never been in the military. I
Mm.
told you my funny story about almost getting signed up for the military, and then finding out I was pregnant with my oldest kid. Um, the only thing I can think of that I've experienced close to that was when I was like 19 years old. I moved out into the Pocono Mountains with the guy I was engaged with, and it was a very tiny town, let's call it that, and a lot of backwards thinking people who had some really unfortunate opinions about the differences in race and even in genders. And I remember I worked at Burger King because there was like 5 places to work in the whole town. And this African American family came in, and the girl at the counter was just being nasty. And I remember I'm in the kitchen. I wasn't on counter duty at this point yet. And I remember I was standing there watching her, and then I'm like looking around, like at all the people I'm working with, like, is anybody else like not, does nobody else see a problem with this? And I'm looking around, I'm looking at the manager, I look at the manager, and finally I went up to the girl and I tapped her on her shoulder and I was like, "Excuse me." And here's me, I have almost zero idea of how to work the damn picture register thing. And I'm like, I'll figure this out. I was like apologize for this girl, not for her, but for her behavior, and waited on the family. And once they left, I had it out with my manager. I was like, I can't believe, like, like I feel like I stepped into the like the twilight zone. I was like, we're still on planet Earth, correct? Like I know I moved out of from the city, the big city, to like the backwoods, but where I come from, we don't treat people like that. Like that's completely unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And the look on everybody's face was like I was out of my mind, and I was like, I can't do this. Like if this is the way you treat people, I don't want to have anything to do with any of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked off the job. I was like, I'm done with this. I didn't actually wait to have any consequences. I raised a lot of eyebrows and hopefully left people thinking a little differently than when I had walked in there that evening. Um, but yeah, I quit. I quit and essentially had no job for the last few months that we lived in that town, and got a lot of finger pointing, a lot of stares. I got a lot of rude comments yelled at me out of vehicle windows as I was walking down the main street of that town, because news travels fast when you live in a place where there's like 500 people.
Believe me, I
Um,
know. I grew up in
yeah,
small towns too. I get it.
yeah, and I was like, all I could do was just be excited for getting to move back home. Like I just, it is what it is at this point. That was a long, long time ago, but um, in that moment, I don't even know if I would call that courage. For me, it was one of those gut moments, like I said earlier, where my gut, my instinct, my intuition, whatever you want to call it, my inner voice stood up, like spoke up for me. And I wasn't thinking about, was this going to get me in trouble, or, you know, what was bad was going to happen. I just kind of did the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in my mind, courage is somewhat of like a conscious versus a subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, emotion, unlike fear, which kind of lives in our, subconscious, which kind of reacts to things, and
Mm-hmm.
involuntarily in most cases.
I can resonate with that.
So
I
yeah,
can truly resonate with that right there because I'll share something. I'll be real vulnerable here for a second. One of the most courageous things that I ever did was fight my dad
yeah,
because it was a reaction. It was one of those things that I had had enough and I just took off swinging.
yeah,
And that was the most courageous thing that I had ever done, and I was crying afterwards. It was just one of those things that we felt bad. Of course I got stomped, but it was one of those things. He's like 4 times bigger than me, so it was just kind of one of those things. Like at that moment in time, we was just going at it, like we was arguing over something extremely silly. Looking back on it now, we can both laugh at it now, because it's like 40 years later. but
yeah,
but it or well 30 to 35 years later. I can't remember the exact time frame. It was in the 80s. um and I had had enough. It was just kind of one of those things that I'd never thought about ever taking a swing, and at that moment in time it was a reaction, and I look back on that and that was pretty courageous, kind
yeah.
of a thing. So what's the most courageous thing you've ever done?
Oh, um, most courageous thing I've ever done. Uh, I'm trying to weigh the courageous versus stupidity. um, no, honestly, I've stepped into some pretty um, physically threatening situations,
Mhm.
in order to help other people, um, help myself, rescue someone. Um, and a lot of that was, like I was saying, like a lot of the different abusive slash traumatic experiences I had in my early 20s, involved some situations like that. Um, Probably one of the most courageous but smartest and necessary things I've ever did was leave an abusive relationship and tearing out the back door, bare feet, pitch black, with a 4-month-old baby in my arms, not really having any idea where or how far I was going to run, but I was, getting to the first safest place that I could find just to get out of the situation that I was in. And knowing that this is like we were talking about earlier, I could have stayed and kept my mouth shut and not spoken up. But it got to the point where I wasn't sure if that was going to keep us safe any longer. I'll just put it that way. And so I felt like the next safest thing was just to get the hell out of there as fast as I could. So, yeah.
I did something similar to that as well, too, where I just packed up my car and just left. It was just kind of one of those things, like I had an absolute enough of where I was at in a particular situation. And that took a lot of courage to leave that, and then I ended up going up north to the Midwest. And it was one of those things where I showed up and I called ahead of time. So it was not like a mystery that I was going to be there. So I was like, hey, man, I said, I'd had enough in this situation right here. I need to get out of it. And I was like, can I come and stay with you guys? Yeah, sure. Come on up. So that was a 24-hour drive for me. So I loaded up my car and packed up everything that I had, which all fit in my car at the time, and drove up there. When I got there, it was a different story. It was like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? What's going on with you? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I literally just called you guys. And it was like, yeah, come on up. We got a place for you. You can come on up here. You're having troubles, whatever the case may be. And then I get there and it's a different story. I only stood for that for about 24 hours. The next day I called my dad. I was like, hey, I come up here, story changed, not welcome, whatever the case may be. I was like, can I come out and stay with you? So then I got back in my car and drove out to the west. And that was about a good 4-day drive from there. It was just one of those things. And when I got there, he didn't really have any space for me, but he said, come on out. So I had all my stuff in my car and he put me on his back porch, which was the only room that he had for me. And I was like, I'll take it. I'm grateful for that. So that's what we did. I stayed out on the back porch and then I took a job. I was like, man, I got to work. I said, I can't just come out and stay with my dad and not work, and not help out and be productive. So I took a job. I worked at a canning factory right on the Mexico border. I was the only white dude that worked there. Okay. So I got stared at and talked about in Spanish all day, every day. They was like, is he a cop? Is he border patrol? Who's this guy? Why is he here? I would have the women bring me food and the men would give me dirty looks, kind of a thing. So that took a lot of courage to kind of go to work every day in an environment like that, where you are being judged by every person that's there, thinking you're either a cop or you're border patrol.
Yeah.
That only lasted about 30 days. I'd had enough of that. And I was like, man, okay, can't stay down there. Nobody wants me up there. Tired of getting judged over here and staying on a back porch over here. And that's what ultimately led to me joining the military, which also took a lot of courage as well, too.
Yeah.
So when you hit that brick wall and you feel like you have absolutely nowhere to go, sometimes you just got to have the courage to just step outside of yourself and take a chance on yourself. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree about the stepping outside yourself. Like I said, I feel like a lot of, up until the past maybe 10 years, most of my courage was born out of necessity and getting out of a dangerous situation. Not all of it, most of it. I said I tore out of that house not knowing where I was going in bare feet with a, barely clothed baby. And not knowing if I was going to get followed. I think that was the scariest thing on my mind was how fast can I get somewhere,
Mhm.
get away from this dude and
Yeah,
be safe, or be around
exactly.
other people that, are going to keep me safe.
Yeah.
Um, and, but I think courage shows up in a lot of different ways. And we've shown a lot of different examples. And some of those are due to physical safety. Some of those are for emotional safety. Some
Mhm.
of them are taking a leap into the unknown, which is what really my courage has been uh, focused or centered around the past 4 or 5 years, and really heavily concentrated in this last like year and a half, maybe 2 years of stepping into the unknown, taking a leap of faith, saying yes with my instinct, my gut, and then following through. Because my gut sometimes speaks up, and I'm like, I don't know what you were talking about, but I don't think you were right. You should have
Yeah.
said yes to that. Um, but then, like having the courage to actually follow through and show up for the thing that my gut said yes to for me. And I just went through that. I'm still kind of going through that now, as I started a new position and I started the process back in October. And that was definitely a case where somebody said, "Hey, I've got this opportunity for you." And I was like, "Hell yeah. What do I have to do?"
Mhm.
And then just continuously saying, "Okay, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? What do I need to do next?" Not really seeing much further than like the next 3 to 5 feet as I was
Mhm.
going for the first several months.
Yeah.
And now I'm a little more settled in, but it's funny that once I started saying yes to those different types of opportunities, kind of instinctually, more of them started popping up. And so it gave me um, more practice at, I'm going to say, at the follow through, because my gut is still speaking for me. It's
Mhm.
still saying yes or hell yes to these different things. Sometimes to the surprise of my own mouth. And, uh, but the courage comes in the follow through,
Mm.
and not backing out, not going, oh, you know what? Once the fear of the unknown catches up to me, imposter syndrome galore, and not turning around and saying, hey, you know what? I changed my mind. Or, hey, what? I'm going to block your number. Or, hey, what? I'm not sure I want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
Uh, and really just giving myself the chance to show that I can have that courage. And then it builds that confidence. And that's part of what we were talking about the other day, is how having the courage to say yes in a lot of these situations, or stand up in a lot of these situations, and then the follow through of whatever it is that you're signing yourself up for, whether that be a physical situation, or a mental fit situation. You get to build that confidence, and Evan talks about this, doing the hard things. So you get to build that evidence for yourself that I can do these hard things. And so the newer things don't seem quite as scary. Like, that you build up all of these different skills to get through various things. And so I don't know if we necessarily ever get to a point where you have to be less courageous.
Mhm.
But I feel like, or how that scale really would work if you wanted to draw it out, like if the scarier the thing, the more courage you have to do it, or what, that would be interesting to actually look at.
Mhm.
But I feel like the more you say yes, the more you follow through, the more you build confidence, which then leads to that competence as well, which then feeds into your confidence. It's kind of like this, almost like an infinity symbol, if you will, in
Mhm.
my opinion.
Yeah, I can resonate with that, and that's where that confidence comes into play. And I know we previously talked about confidence, but I believe that, courage and confidence work a little bit hand in hand. And when you have the knowledge, when you have the skills, when you have the experience, when you have the ability, that gives you that confidence to do a lot of different things. So I think that sometimes people often confuse courage and confidence together, but they're similar.
I think, in my opinion, courage is being brave enough to not have to know the end result, or not really know how to do the thing. It's like feeling the fear and doing it anyways. Whereas
Mhm.
confidence kind of, in my mind, is like, I know how to do this thing. I know that I can get through it. So I don't know, because I also have had to compare confidence to cockiness before. And in
Mm.
my mind, cockiness is basically feeling, or conceit, is feeling um, that uh, you're better than everyone at everything. And confidence is knowing that even if you're not better than better than everyone at everything, like everything's still going to be okay. And like you can figure it out. Um, I think cockiness too is like this um, false sense of being better at everything
Mm.
than everyone. But I'm not going to go down that road. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I guess people could confuse courage and confidence, but I almost feel like they're almost opposite.
Mm. Okay.
I
All
don't
right.
know. What are your
Awesome.
thoughts?
So just a short pause for the I am Unbreakable printout right here. So I just want to let everybody know
I am.
very quickly. I'm going to share a link right here across the screen. So right there, if you want to share your support, here's what we want you to do. This little printout right here that Bonnie created is right there at that link. So if you want to share your support, go to unbreakablestories.com/share. You will see all of the details right there on how you can print out this sheet right here and share it across social media. So we do have all of our social media right there on the site, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We also have all of the details on how you can share your support. Once again, we would greatly appreciate that if you printed that out. And if you don't have a printer, no worries, just download it on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, Mac, or on your TV. That would be really awesome too. Big giant TV screen and having that printable on there. You kind of standing there pointing at it or something along those lines. So that would be absolutely phenomenal as well too. And that's one great way in which you can share your support to Unbreakable Stories. It's absolutely for free to do. And here's what we're doing. As you're there, you'll see all the details of the amazing friends that we've had that already shared their support with us. And we want to share your story. We want to share that you are unbreakable. So if you print that out, we'll make sure that we add that to our social media. We'll make sure we add that image to our site as well too. So once again, that's unbreakablestories.com/share. We would greatly appreciate you sharing your support. All right. So I have shared the link to join. If anybody does want to join in very quickly, we're about ready to wind this down. I know both of us have some things going on tonight. So this is the first live stream that we've done in about 5 weeks. And, it's one of those things to where I definitely do not want to go overboard with the voice. My voice is still scratchy and everything as well, too. And we have some things going on. But if anybody does want to join, I have shared the link there to join in on StreamYard. You can go ahead and tap on that link or click on that link right there and join us on StreamYard. We'll bring you up, ask questions, or if you want to share your thoughts, your ideas. We're going to shut down here very soon. Or if you want to just join the after party, and if there is no after party, then oh well, we do have some other things going on, but while we're giving people that opportunity right there, Bonnie, do you have any final words about courage?
uh, Final words. I think I was trying to think of it back in the scope of my life, if courage was something that I feel like I always had, or I kind of had to um, grow it, if you will, um, become it. And I think it's kind of a mixture of both. I think a lot of kids are fairly fearless until they learn by the adults around them. And I think there's a difference between fearlessness and courageousness too.
Mm-hmm.
Courageous is knowing something's dangerous and or could be dangerous, or not knowing the outcome and doing it anywhere ways. Whereas fearless is like literally completely oblivious to the fact that you should be afraid of something.
Yeah.
Hence, kids jumping off of like roofs or, you know, down 14 concrete steps without even thinking
Yeah.
about it.
Yes.
Uh, because they
That,
have no fear
that could
yet,
fall in the category of stupid as well too. I don't
Yes,
know.
yes. I think if you see somebody get hurt doing that, or have gotten hurt yourself doing that, and then you attempt to do it again, that does definitely fall in the category of
Mhm.
stupid. Um, However, if you've got no prior knowledge of how this really works, you know, it's a little different. Um, I like my youngest was talking to me about how excited he is that he can, attempt to do backflips into our pool this summer, and I was like, no, because he doesn't know any better. He doesn't understand that our pool is only 42 inches deep, and that's really dangerous. In
Yeah.
his mind, he sees kids doing them, on YouTube into these 8 foot deep pools, and he doesn't know any difference between our pool and their pool. And I had to explain to
Mhm.
him, like, there's a couple of different reasons that would be really, really dangerous in our swimming pool, and that would not be a good idea. So now, if he attempts it, at least he had a warning.
I love it. So we do have a friend backstage. Janine is patiently waiting backstage. We're going to go ahead and bring her on up here and join the show. So, Janine, welcome to the show. What are your thoughts about courage? Do you have any thoughts about courage, or do you have any questions or anything?
Yeah, hey guys, mainly here to say hi and support, and I really enjoyed being here and hearing your discussion. Yeah, I think that the definition that Bonnie gave of courage to me, and not to like nitpick or anything, but that sounds like faith, that I think faith is about
Mhm.
doing things that you don't know. I don't know, but I guess that's courage too. So, like, I don't, there's no necessarily right or wrong answer, right? It's about the personal meaning and definitions.
Hmm. I love that. Bonnie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think she's wrong. I
Mhm.
think faith. I think sometimes faith gives you, though, like it almost replaces courage.
Mhm.
When you have faith that things, like, you have no fear that things are going to work out.
Mhm.
And again, this is a personal thing. Everybody looks at that dynamic differently in different situations.
Mhm.
Um, I guess when I think of courage and being brave, um, the first thought for me is that physical danger or potential
Mhm.
danger in a situation.
Mhm.
And um, now that, well, now for me, I've been in this entrepreneurial space, business building space for the past like 4 or 5 years. Um, Being courageous and brave has kind of taken on a new meaning
Hmm.
because I'm not doing physically scary things. It's mentally scary things, or like
Mhm.
judgment scary things, or, you know, a lot of it does have break boil down to fear of judgment.
Mhm.
What are they going to think of me? Am I going to be good at this thing? Uh, so yeah, I mean, I try to stay fairly consistent in the faith that everything is going to work out.
Mhm.
Um, but it still takes me courage in a lot of different situations, um, to keep going when I don't know where the heck I'm going or what
Mhm.
that's going to look like.
Yeah. I mean, it can be scary, especially when you don't really know the outcome. And when you know that you have all of the knowledge, the skills, the experience to do what is right or to do the right thing, we oftentimes really don't know what those results are going to be. And that can be a scary thing. We all want to achieve success in one form or fashion or another. And taking that leap of faith, or, you know, having courage under fire, so to speak, it's one of those things to where you just have to believe in yourself and your ability that you have exactly what it takes to do whatever that thing is. And even though we threw a lot of words out here that have, similar meanings, different meanings, I truly believe that having the courage to face a situation, either when you don't know the outcome or even when you do know the outcome, I always talk about the military. It's like, I know I'm sending you out there. You could get shot at. You could get this. You have to have the courage to go take that action, knowing that could be the outcome. And I had to have the courage to do that as a leader as well, too, knowing that I picked the right person for the job, knowing that I picked the right person to go out there and do that thing. And at the end of that, will I have the courage to go back and tell that person's parents or loved one or spouse, hey, I'm the one that sent your soldier out there to go do this thing. That takes courage as well, too, to go back. And I have had to do that. I have had to go say, hey, on behalf of, us, sorry for the loss of your loved one. And it's a truly difficult thing to do, to muster the courage to stand face to face with someone, knowing that you sent someone out and they didn't come back. And that takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of confidence, a lot of faith, a lot of, bravery, whatever label we want to put on that. And the stories that we shared tonight, the things that we shared tonight, there's just a few examples, and I'm sure that a lot of other people have some great examples. So, Janine, while we have you here, what is the most courageous thing you've ever done?
I think that ever is a strong word, because it's hard to pick just like one thing. But I will say this, what I've been thinking about in the context of like you guys, get out here. You both Terry and Bonnie, you guys are really good at creating an audience by showing up on different platforms and having discussions. For me, it took a long observation time frame of like watching both between like watching other people do what you guys are doing, and I guess I'm here with you too, like going live and talking about business. And I have my own events now that I guess I was able to work up the courage, and even like launching my offers. But when you start a business, especially when your customers are people who they're pretty much individuals in a sense that you're actually personally coaching, who are in a relatively early business stage, that they're putting their trust in me to be able to help them. And I do have to have some faith in myself that I can provide the value well above and beyond what I'm charging. But even to get to the point where I could articulate the value and market it in a really confident way, I'll say this to be a bit vulnerable here, I guess, that I used to, Bonnie knows this, I used to feel like bad about myself, or like there was something wrong with me, that it took me longer to do that than it has for other people. But as you guys know, like comparing yourself to other people is just such a losing proposition. It's not a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And here's what I've discovered over the years, that, if you always compare yourself to others, you will never be yourself. But at the opposite end of that spectrum, people will often judge you from a place of their weakness when they do not understand or cannot relate to your strength. The deal is that every day we have opportunities to go do different things. And sometimes we have to take that courageous step to say no. And that's one of the things that we did not really talk about here tonight, but I want to bring that up here before we close down. And that's the power of no, the courage of no. And sometimes and it's two letters, one syllable, simple word to say, it rolls right there. No. But yet it's so hard to say sometimes, with all of the things that we're doing, the commitments that we have, the people that we're responsible for and to, for that matter. And we don't want to fall flat on our face, because as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as people, whatever label we want to put on that, sometimes the hardest thing that we have the courage to say is no. What are your thoughts?
I agree. In a lot of different situations across the spectrum of business relationships, et cetera, et cetera. uh, there were situations where saying no caused me physical harm. And there were situations where saying no, um, put me in a position where I felt like I was losing something, right? Or I was going to be punished in some way, have something taken away. Whether that was, in a job or in a relationship or whatever the case was. Um, it's very interesting when I look back at the different, up until like the last few years, when I had the courage the most to stand up to things that I felt that were wrong, or stand up for what I felt was right. Because I had kids so young, most of those situations involved my kids in one way, shape, or form. And I had very little problem putting my foot down, standing in the face of authority and saying, no, this is not right. You're not doing this. Or, no, this is what we need. You need to be doing this. But for myself, it was a lot more challenging to stand up for myself. And I don't know if that's like mama bear mode kicking in or whatever that is, where kids are defenseless, and that's part of my nature. Being a mom. So yeah, I agree. I've definitely seen that as a theme in my life from probably late childhood, um, again up until my early to mid 30s, where I didn't have the confidence to say no, in different situations. And sometimes it takes confidence that if you say no and you stand up for yourself, or you stand your ground, or set your boundaries, that people will still be around. And what I finally realized is that if there are those people um, who can't tolerate hearing the word no, then there's a good chance that I don't need to spend as much time with those people anyways. So that's really kind of what I've learned out of most of that.
Yes, standing up for yourself by saying no is a truly powerful thing to do. It really is. Yeah. Janine, do you have any final thoughts on anything that we talked about here tonight, or do you want to add value to the no conversation that we're having at the moment?
Yeah, I think this comes back to also, again, like talking about how you show up, and which is something that occurs. That's what occurs to me from a personal standpoint of what I've had to build up the courage to do. And I think that obviously, like across the internet and like internet-based business owners, there's like such a there's an incredible diversity of individuals and personalities and strategies they use. And people from an individual standpoint are often very confident in what they personally are doing. But saying no to anything specific, not just in that context, but again, that's one that I think the audience and you guys can relate to, and that I have at the top of my mind, that not doing something that other people are doing, if it doesn't feel 100% aligned, I think is an important situation where it's okay to say no until you're saying yes to what you really want to be doing.
I love that. That was truly powerful share. All right, awesome. So for about the last 54 minutes, we've been talking about courage and how to have unbreakable courage to do anything that you want. We've covered a wide variety of additional words as well, too. And I just want to say, Bonnie, thank you very much. I know we took a long break there, and this is the first night that we had been back live in about 5 weeks. And I just want to say once again, thank you very much for everything that you do. It took a lot of courage for both of us to come together and to do the things that we're doing here, to build the business that we've built, to build the platforms that we've built, to build the relationships that we've built. And just like Janine pointed out, it's you show up every day. You show up so that you can show out. You speak up so that you can speak out. Because by having these conversations, having the courage to be here, oftentimes where we might not necessarily feel like it or have the right words to say, or we're stumbling over ourselves, or different things. It's one of those things that we put ourselves out there, and that takes a lot of courage, because there are lots of people that just they don't stand up, they don't speak out, they don't do those things. We was in a clubhouse room the other day, and there was a gentleman who had the courage to speak up and say, I'm a follower. And I have no problem being a follower. He goes, I'm not a leader. I don't have this. I don't have that. And he was just being extremely vulnerable during that particular situation, and to say exactly who he is and what he is. And I truly believe that when you have the courage to be vulnerable, to be transparent, that's not only liberating, but it's also empowering. And I just want to say once again, Bonnie, thank you very much. Janine, thank you for joining us as well too. Truly powerful conversations. I love everything that you're doing with Founders Live. I love everything that you're doing. I know that you and Bonnie have worked truly hard on the things that you are partnering with and working together with as well too. Wishing you all the best and continued success. Before we close down, once again, Janine, do you have any final thoughts?
I think I pretty well covered it, but thanks again to both of you. I really appreciate your support and your kindness for including me in your community. It's really great and refreshing to have people like you guys where like things feel good. I told David Meltzer the other day in our coaching call that I don't work anymore. I just experience joy constantly. I know Bonnie is smiling about that, but I mean, you guys both contribute to that feeling, and I think it's a worthy feeling and place from which I can contribute to the world. So thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. Thank you very much, Janine. Bonnie, any last words here? I know I've asked again, but anything else before we close down?
I'm glad we're back. You're welcome. Thank you. Just trying to keep a mental note, like a mental post-it note. Um, and I just wanted to touch on the one thing, like you saying earlier. Yeah, I was struggling. Janine knows this, with brain fog and just feeling not like myself all week.
Mhm.
And so I'm glad though that I've gotten to a place, especially with you and our community, that it doesn't take courage to show up when I'm feeling less than like full capacity anymore, because we've got such a supportive group that's accepting and cares about our well-being, and that's made a huge difference. Because um, had that not been the case, it would have taken a lot of courage to come up, or I might have said, "The hell with this! I'm not showing up tonight because I'm not like my brain's not functioning at full capacity today, and I don't want anybody
Mhm.
to see that."
Mhm.
But because I know that we have the love and support of our community, and you guys obviously included as some of the closest people in that to me. um, I can show up as myself even when I feel like I'm not the fullest or best version of myself, and that's a really cool space to be in for sure.
I
So
love that.
thank you both for that.
You are absolutely welcome. And I feel the same way as well too. I mean, you know that I'm usually bouncing off the walls with energy and this, that, and the other. And to be this calm, I think throughout an entire conversation, it's kind of different. It's different space for me as well too. And man, I just want to say I'm grateful for you. I know that's something that we've often said, but I'm truly grateful for you, and I'm truly proud of the thing that we built together so far.
I want to say ditto. I am too. I am super excited to see where this is. Anybody that can come back after 5 weeks of not live streaming and pick it right back up,
Hmm.
even with my brain fog, as a team, um, I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. So.
I love it. All right. So that concludes this live stream right here. I just want to say, on behalf of myself and my co host Bonnie and our amazing friend here, Miss Janine, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Until next week, take care of yourself. Self care is truly important. All right. Make sure that you take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. That way you can show up and you can show out. But it starts with taking care of yourself. We missed you guys. We'll see you next week.